The rain-slicked hearse pulled away from the curb on Divisadero Street, leaving Lucas drenched not just from the downpour but from the hollow ache that clawed at his ribs like a living thing. "He's gone," the lawyer had said earlier that gray afternoon in the sterile office overlooking the bay. His voice flat as he slid the will across the mahogany desk. "Everything to your Uncle Victor, per your father's explicit wishes." Lucas's knees buckled right there in the cemetery, the mud sucking at his boots as the first sob tore free. Raw and animal. Because how do you bury the only man who ever saw you whole? Only to learn he saw you as nothing at all? He'd always known Victor was the favorite, the straight-arrow twin brother to Dad's wilder spirit. The one who'd married young, popped out grandkids, and built a life that screamed normal from the rooftops of their sprawling Pacific Heights home. But this was erasure. Lucas stumbled back to the empty Victorian house that night, the key cold in his palm, the silence inside thicker than the fog rolling in from the Golden Gate. He collapsed onto the leather armchair by the fireplace, Dad's chair, still smelling faintly of pipe tobacco and old regrets, and that's when the floorboard creaked under his boot, loose and insistent, like a secret finally demanding to be heard. Lucas pried at the warped oak plank with trembling fingers, his nails splintering against the wood until it gave way with a splintering crack that echoed through the empty rooms like a gunshot. Dust motes danced in the sliver of moonlight piercing the lace curtains, and there, nestled in the hollow beneath, was a small brass box, its latch oxidized but unbroken. His breath hitched. Dad had always been a hoarder of mysteries, the kind of man who'd vanish into his study for hours with a tumbler of bourbon, emerging with stories of jazz clubs in the Castro during the 80s, eyes distant and lips curved in a half-smile that never quite reached them. But this felt like trespassing on a grave he hadn't even begun to dig. The box opened with a whisper, revealing a single envelope, yellowed at the edges, sealed with a wax stamp bearing the initials IM. No address, no date, just his father's looping script on the front. "For the boy who sees me." Lucas's heart slammed against his sternum as he slid it open, the paper crinkling like dry leaves underfoot in Golden Gate Park. The words inside blurred at first through the hot sting in his eyes, but then they sharpened, pulling him under like the riptide off Baker Beach. "My dearest Harlan, if you're reading this, it means the cancer won, or the bottle, or the weight of all these years we've carried in silence. I never had the guts to say it face to face, not after that night in '87, when the world was burning with AIDS and fear, and you chose your brother over us. Victor was always the safe harbor, the one who fit the mold your family hammered into you. But me, I was the storm. The one who made you laugh until your sides ached in that dingy Mission District apartment. Who held you when the diagnoses started rolling in for our friends. Who loved you in a way that scared you more than any courtroom verdict ever could. Good. Harlan, I wish I'd fought harder. For us. For the life we glimpsed in stolen weekends up in Napa. Driving that old Mustang with the top down, your hand on my thigh as the vineyards blurred by. But I let you go, because you begged me to, said it was for the family, for the legacy. And look what that bought you, a son who sees right through the facade, just like I did in you. Lucas, he's got your fire, your quiet rage against the straight lines the world draws. Don't let Victor poison that. The cabin in Tahoe, the one you bought for investments, it's in my name still. Deeds in the safe deposit box at Wells Fargo on Market Street. Give it to him. Tell him about me. Tell him he's not alone in this. Forever yours, Elias. Lucas's hands shook so violently the letter fluttered to the floor like a wounded bird. Elias. The name tugged at half-remembered fragments, Dad muttering it once during a drunken Christmas Eve, eyes glassy over eggnog, before waving it off with a laugh that didn't land. And the cabin? Tahoe had been their escape. Dad's sacred ground, where he'd take Lucas fishing as a kid, teaching him to cast lines into the crystalline lake while spinning yarns about old flames that always veered into metaphors about lost horizons. But this was no metaphor. His father, pipe-smoking Harlan Montgomery, pillar of the San Francisco legal community, had been gay. In love with a man. And he'd buried it so deep it poisoned everything, even his will. Tears carved hot paths down Lucas's cheeks, mixing with the salt of betrayal and the sweet shock of finally understanding. Dad hadn't hated him for coming out at 16. Screaming it in the kitchen after his first boyfriend dumped him for a girl at Lowell High. But the distance? The awkward silences over family dinners, that was shame turned inward. A mirror Dad couldn't face. Lucas curled into the armchair, clutching the letter to his chest, the brass box digging into his ribs like a talisman. Dawn crept in through the bay windows, painting the room in bruised purples and golds. But sleep was a stranger. By the time the clock struck 7, he'd made up his mind. He'd find Elias. For Dad. For himself. The Wells Fargo on Market Street was a fortress of glass and steel. The kind of place that made you feel small and surveilled under the hum of fluorescent lights. Lucas's palms sweated as he presented Dad's death certificate and the safe deposit key, number 478. A number Dad had etched into his mind during one of those Tahoe trips. Just in case. Kiddo. The bank teller, a no-nonsense woman with a severe bob, led him to the vault without a word, leaving him alone with the metal drawers that smelled of rust and forgotten promises. Inside the slim envelope were the deeds, crisp legal papers transferring the Tahoe cabin outright to Elias Montgomery, no, Elias Moreau, the name corrected in faded ink. And tucked beneath, a faded Polaroid, 2 men in their 30s, arms slung around each other on a snowy porch, grins wide and unguarded. Hair wilder, eyes alight with a joy Lucas had only glimpsed in old home videos. Beside him, Elias, taller, broader, with a salt and pepper beard starting to thread through his stubble, laughing with his head thrown back. Lucas's throat tightened. This was love. Unapologetic and alive. The kind he'd chased in dive bars and grinder hookups, only to wake up hollow. The address on the deed led him to a modest bungalow in No Valley. The kind of place with rainbow flags fluttering from porches and chalk murals of queer icons on the sidewalks. Lucas parked his beat-up Civic, Dad's old handmade, the one with the dent from that fender bender in college, and approached the door with legs like lead. He knocked, the sound swallowed by the coo of mourning doves in the jacaranda tree overhead. The man who answered was a ghost made flesh, Elias, but aged by time's cruel hand. His once broad shoulders stooped under a faded UC Berkeley sweatshirt. Eyes stormy blue, just like the lake, rimmed with the fine lines of quiet grief. He blinked at Lucas, the Polaroid's joy replaced by a wary flicker. "Can I help you?" Lucas thrust the letter forward, words tumbling out in a rush. "I'm Lucas. Harlan's son. He left this for you." "For me." Elias's face crumpled like paper in a fist, and he stepped aside, gesturing weakly into the sun-dappled living room cluttered with bookshelves groaning under tomes on civil rights and vintage vinyls. Nina Simone, Billie Holiday, the soundtrack of Hidden Lives. They sat at a scarred oak table, coffee steaming untouched between them as Elias read, his lips moving silently over the words. When he finished, a single tear traced the furrow of a laugh line. Good. He kept it all this time. That stubborn bastard. His voice was gravel wrapped in velvet, laced with the faint drawl of a Louisiana boy who'd fled south for the city's embrace decades ago. I thought he'd burned it. After he chose Victor's path, the firm, the wife, the facade. But you look just like him at your age. The eyes. The fire. Lucas swallowed hard. The vulnerability of the moment stripping him bare. Why'd he do it? Leave everything to Victor? Was it shame? The word hung heavy, laced with his own scars, the high school beatings in the locker room, the way Mom had tiptoed around his phase until she couldn't anymore and left for a sister in Seattle. Elias leaned back, rubbing his beard with a calloused thumb. Your dad loved you fierce, Lucas. More than he loved himself. But Victor. He was the twin who stayed in the light. The one Harlan thought could carry the name without the world's knives at his throat. I was the risk. And after the scare in '92, my T-cells tanking, the AZT cocktails that tasted like battery acid, Harlan pulled away. Said it was to protect the family. But I see now, reading this, he was protecting you from knowing a father who couldn't be whole. The confession cracked something in Lucas, a dam bursting after years of polite distance. He reached across the table, peasant, and Elias clasped his hand, warm, steady, the grip of a man who'd outlived epidemics and heartbreaks. There's a son, Elias added softly, as if testing the waters. Mine. Alex. He's out running errands, but he'd want to meet you. We've got stories that could fill that cabin twice over. As if summoned, the front door swung open, admitting a gust of eucalyptus-scented air and a man who stopped Lucas's breath mid-inhale. Alex Moreau, early 30s, built like he'd spent summers hauling lobster traps instead of coding apps in the valley, broad chest filling out a heather gray Henley. Jeans faded at the knees, dark hair cropped close and curling at the nape, skin kissed golden by California sun. His eyes, a mirror of Elias's but sharper, flicked from his father to Lucas with a curiosity that bordered on electric. Dad? Everything okay? His voice was low, resonant, carrying the easy confidence of someone who'd come out at 12 and never looked back. Elias nodded, sliding the letter across. Meet Lucas Montgomery, Harlan's boy. And apparently, the keeper of old ghosts. Alex's gaze lingered on Lucas, a slow smile tugging at his full lips, lips that promised both mischief and mercy. He extended a hand, calluses rough from weekend carpentry gigs, and when their palms met, the spark jumped, unbidden and undeniable, like the first crackle of a bonfire on a Tahoe night. By the time the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the hardwood floors, Lucas had spilled his guts, the will's betrayal, the ache of burying Dad under a sky that wept as hard as he did. Alex listened, perched on the arm of the couch, his knee brushing Lucas's in a way that felt accidental but lingered too long to be. Screw Victor, Alex said finally, his tone laced with that Bay Area blend of outrage and optimism. We've got the deeds. And if it's a fight, we fight. But first, you need to see the cabin. It's where it all started, and maybe where it ends right. Lucas met his eyes, the hazel locking with that stormy blue. And for the first time since the funeral, the hollow in his chest felt a little less vast. Yeah, he murmured, the word tasting like possibility. Let's go home. The drive to Tahoe was a blur of winding Sierra highways. The old Mustang, retrieved from the garage where Dad had babied it like a lover, purring under Alex's hands on the wheel. Elias had insisted on staying behind, citing old bones and paperwork, but his wink as they pulled away spoke volumes. Go make your own story. Lucas rode shotgun, the letter folded in his jacket pocket like a talisman, the Polaroid tucked beside it. Alex blasted a playlist of queer anthems, Frank Ocean bleeding into Years and Years, the bass thrumming through the leather seats, syncing with the quickened pulse in Lucas's veins. They talked in fits and starts, the conversation weaving through the pines like the road itself. Alex was a freelance photographer, the kind who chased light in abandoned warehouses and protest marches. His portfolio a testament to lives lived loud, portraits of trans elders in the Castro, drag queens mid-twirl at midnight sun. Dad raised me on stories of your father, he confessed as they crested Donner Pass. The lake's sapphire expanse unfolding below like a promise. The man who got away. But he never hated him for it. Said love like that doesn't die, it just hibernates, waiting for spring. Lucas glanced sideways, tracing the strong line of Alex's jaw. The way his fingers drummed the wheel to thinkin' 'bout you. There was an ease to him, a groundedness that Lucas envied, the way Alex owned his space without apology, scars and all. You ever resent it? Growing up with half a ghost in the house? Alex's laugh was warm, rueful. Every kid resents something. Mine was wondering why Dad's eyes went distant every pride. But it made me who I am, fierce about the now. No half measures. His gaze flicked over, holding Lucas's for a beat too long, the air between them thickening with unspoken heat. Lucas felt it low in his gut, a pull like gravity, but he shoved it down. This was about legacy, not lust. Right? The cabin squatted on a wooded bluff overlooking the lake. A rustic A-frame of cedar and stone that smelled of pine sap and memory. Dad had called it the outpost, a place for recharging the soul, but now Lucas saw it for what it was, a sanctuary, hidden from Victor's judgmental gaze and the firm's endless billable hours. They unlocked the door with the key from the deed packet, stepping into a time capsule, leather-bound law tomes on the shelves, a stone fireplace mantled with arrowheads from boyhood hunts, and in the loft bedroom, a quilt folded neat as if waiting for lovers' limbs. That first night, they built a fire, the crackle filling the silence as shadows danced on the rafters. Alex uncorked a bottle of Napa Cab, 87 vintage. The year stamped on the label like fate's cruel joke, and they toasted to ghosts. To Harlan, Alex said, clinking glasses, and the letters that rewrite us. The wine burned sweet on Lucas's tongue, loosening the knots in his chest. And soon stories flowed like the flames. Alex's first kiss behind a Haight Street mural. Lucas's college heartbreak in a Berkeley dorm that ended with a shattered guitar and a therapist's couch. As the embers died to glow, Alex stretched out on the Navajo rug, his Henley riding up to reveal a sliver of toned abdomen inked with a compass rose, north pointing true. Blues. You know, he murmured, voice husky from the smoke. Dad said your father had this way of looking at you, Like you were the only horizon that mattered. I see it in you too. Lucas's breath caught, the room shrinking to the space between their bodies. He wanted to bridge it, to taste the wine on Alex's lips. But the letter's weight in his pocket anchored him. Betrayal first. Love later. Of it all. Morning brought clarity and crisis in equal measure. Lucas's phone buzzed relentlessly on the nightstand. Victor? His texts a barrage of legalese and condescension. Family meeting. My office. Don't make this ugly. The drive back to the city was tense. Alex's jaw set like granite as he navigated the traffic-clogged 80. He's got no claim, Alex growled. Fingers white-knuckled on the wheel. But he'll fight dirty. Always does. From what Elias says, Victor's office in the financial district was a shrine to straight-laced success, polished walnut desk. Framed golf trophies. A photo of his perfect nuclear family beaming from the credenza. He rose as they entered, tall and imposing in a Brooks Brothers suit, his face a mask of paternal concern that didn't reach his ice-blue eyes, Dad's eyes. Twisted into something colder. Lucas. Friend. The word dripped disdain, landing like acid. Alex Moreau, Lucas said, chin lifting. The letter clutched in his fist like a shield. Son of Elias. You remember him, Uncle? The one Dad wrote about before he died. Victor's smile faltered. Just a twitch. But Lucas caught it, the chink in the armor. Harlan was grieving. Delusional. That letter is hearsay. The will stands. As executor, I'm protecting the estate from scavengers. His gaze raked over Alex, lingering with the subtle revulsion of a man who'd spent his life policing borders. Alex stepped forward, calm as lake water before a storm. Protecting? Or stealing? We've got deeds. Signatures? Proof your brother wanted this cabin, and more, for the man he loved. Unless you're scared of what else might surface. The air crackled, Victor's knuckles whitening on his desk blotter. You think you can waltz in here with fairy tales and rewrite 30 years? Harlan was my brother. I knew him better than, he cut off, face flushing crimson. And in that pause, Lucas saw it, the jealousy, the resentment of a twin forever in the shadow. Straight but somehow lesser. Tomorrow, Victor spat, recovering with a lawyer's precision. Court. And Lucas? Blood or not? You're no Montgomery if you side with this. He jabbed a finger at Alex, the gesture raw with a hatred that smelled of fear. They left the tower block into the salt-tanged wind whipping off the Embarcadero, Lucas's pulse thundering in his ears. He'll bury us in motions, he muttered. But Alex grabbed his arm, pulling him into a shadowed alley between coffee carts, the city noise fading to a hum. Fuck him, Alex whispered, close enough that Lucas could smell the pine on his skin from the cabin. We've got truth. And each other. His hand lingered, thumb brushing Lucas's wrist in a circle that sent heat spiraling up his arm. For a heartbeat, Lucas leaned in, lips parting on a sigh, but the courtroom loomed, and he pulled back, the almost kiss a bruise on his mouth. That night, in Elias's bungalow, they pored over documents by lamplight, the three of them a makeshift war council. Elias's stories filled the gaps, the underground readings at the Valencia, where Harlan would sneak away to hear Elias recite Ginsberg, the AIDS quilt panel they'd sewn together in secret, names stitched in crimson thread. Your dad was brave in whispers, Elias said. Now you be brave and shouts. As midnight tolled, Alex walked Lucas to his car, the streetlights haloing his silhouette like a saint from a queer gospel. Stay, Alex said softly. Not a plea but an invitation, his hand ghosting Lucas's hip. The pole was magnetic, bodies aligning in the chill air, and when their mouths met, tentative at first, then hungry, it was like uncorking a storm. Alex tasted of coffee and resolve, his fingers threading through Lucas's hair, tugging just enough to elicit a gasp. They broke apart breathless, foreheads pressed, the world narrowing to the thunder of shared heartbeats. I want this, Lucas confessed, voice raw. But Victor, he could take everything. Alex's smile was fierce, eyes gleaming. Let him try. Some fortunes aren't measured in deeds. The courtroom in the Civic Center was a coliseum of polished marble and echoing footsteps, the air heavy with the scent of lemon polish and desperation. Lucas sat ramrod straight in the gallery, Alex's knee a steady anchor against his, while Elias flanked his other side, the old man's presence a quiet bulwark. Impeccable in pinstripes, paced before the judge like a shark scenting blood, his opening salvos slicing through the room, my client, as executor, asserts the will's primacy. This so-called letter is a forgery, a desperate ploy by opportunists to append a lifetime of sacrifice. Opportunists. The word landed like a slap, but Lucas held his ground, fingers laced with Alex's under the bench, a lifeline woven from last night's fevered kisses, bodies tangled on Elias's guest room sheets until dawn painted them in reluctant light. They'd mapped each other in whispers and touches, Alex's hands reverent on the scars Lucas hid, the faded burn from a homophobic stepfather's cigarette in his teens, the tattoo of a phoenix over his heart, inked after mom's abandonment. You're not broken, Alex had murmured against his skin, lips trailing fire. You're the rewrite. As Victor's lawyer paraded witnesses, bank officials verifying the will's notarization, a family friend swearing Harlan's traditional values, Lucas's resolve frayed. What if the judge saw only the surface, the gay son consorting with the dead lover's heir? A tabloid-ready scandal? San Francisco prided itself on progress. But courtrooms were conservative cathedrals, altars to precedent over passion. Elias took the stand first, steady as the tides that had shaped him. Under oath, he recounted the Napa weekends, the Mustangs' rumble masking their laughter, Harlan's voice cracking on promises whispered in vineyard shadows. He loved me, Elias said, meeting Victor's glare without flinching. And he loved his son enough to ensure Lucas inherited a piece of that truth. The Polaroid was entered as exhibit. Gasps rippling through the spectators, Victor's face twisting like he'd swallowed glass. Then it was Lucas's turn. He ascended the steps on legs of jelly, the bailiff's gavel a distant drum. My father wasn't perfect, he began, voice steady despite the tremor in his chest. He built walls around his heart because the world taught him love like ours was a liability. But that letter? It's his voice. Clear as the Tahoe Lake he took me to every summer. He wanted me to know I wasn't alone, that his choices weren't a rejection, but a cage he couldn't escape. Tears welled, hot and unbidden, but he let them fall, owning the vulnerability Victor had always mocked as weakness. Victor wants the fortune to bury the past. I wanted to honor it. The cross-examination was brutal. Victor's attorney, a terrier with teeth, isn't it convenient? Mr. Montgomery, That this discovery coincides with your financial woes? The failed startup? The mounting debts? Lucas's jaw clenched, his tech venture in the mission. A queer-owned app for anonymous mental health check-ins? Had tanked in the post-pandemic crunch, leaving him scraping by on freelance coding. But he met the accusation head-on. Convenient? Try cathartic. Dad died thinking he'd failed me. This isn't about money, it's about mending what he couldn't. Alex testified last. His poise magnetic, camera-ready in a crisp chambray shirt that hugged his frame just so. He spoke of Elias's resilience. The quilt panel sewn in vigil. The way Harlan's visits tapered after the diagnosis, but never the love. Blood doesn't make family, Alex said. Voice resonant. Choice does. And Harlan chose truth. In the end, his eyes found Lucas's across the room. A private vow amid the public fray. And something in Lucas uncoiled, a thread of hope weaving through the dread. The judge, a silver-haired woman with a rainbow pin discreetly on her lapel, adjourned for deliberation, her expression unreadable as granite. Under the rotunda's vast dome, Victor cornered them, his whisper venomous. You think you've won? Harlan was weak, chose fantasy over flesh and blood. I'll bury that letter in appeals until you're both beggars. But his eyes betrayed him, darting to Elias with a flicker of something deeper, envy, perhaps, for the life his twin had glimpsed beyond the picket fence. Alex's arm slid around Lucas's waist, possessive and protective. Bury what you want. Some things rise. They walked away into the tenderloin bustle. Food trucks hawking tamales and the distant wail of BART trains underscoring their escape. That evening, they retreated to the cabin, Elias driving the Mustang this time, regaling them with tales of 70s bathhouses and the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence's first Easter march. The lake welcomed them like an old friend, mirror still under a canopy of stars, and around the fire pit, they roasted marshmallows sticky sweet, the sugar a counterpoint to the day's bitterness. But peace was fleeting. Midway through a story about Harlan's botched proposal, down on one knee in a Sausalito fog, ring from Tiffany's that Elias had laughingly refused, Lucas's phone shattered the idyll. The judge's chambers, a provisional ruling in their favor. Pending full probate. The cabin secured but the bulk of the estate tied in knots. Victor's appeal was inevitable. A hydra of litigation. We celebrate small wins, Elias toasted with a flask of single malt. But his eyes shadowed with fatigue. Later, in the loft, with the lake's lap a lullaby against the window, Lucas and Alex shed their clothes like old skins. Moonlight silvered their bodies. Alex's compass rose tattoo glowing as if guiding true north. They moved slow at first, exploratory, fingers tracing collarbones, tongues mapping the valleys of hips, building to a rhythm that echoed the storm outside, rain pelting the roof in sheets. Alex entered him with a gasp that was half prayer, their bodies sinking in a dance of give and take. Lucas's nails raking down sweat-slicked backs. I see you, Alex breathed against his neck, echoing the letter's promise. And Lucas shattered, the release a catharsis that washed away years of isolation. In the afterglow, tangled in quilts that still held Dad's faint cedar scent, Lucas voiced the fear gnawing at him. What if Victor digs up dirt, and dead? On us. Alex propped on an elbow, his touch a balm on Lucas's temple. Let him. Dirt's just earth waiting to grow something new. They made love again. Urgent this time. as if sealing a pact against the dawn. Weeks blurred into a siege. Victor's appeals dragged like tar through the courts. Depositions in fluorescent-lit conference rooms where lawyers dissected Harlan's life like a cadaver. Lucas juggled it all, coding gigs from a WeWork in Soma, stolen lunches with Alex at Tartine where croissants flaked like whispered endearments. Their love deepened in the margins, a graffiti hunt in the Mission where Alex snapped Lucas mid-laugh against a Banksy-esque mural, quiet evenings at Elias's. Cooking gumbo from his grandfather's recipe, the spice mirroring the heat building between them. But cracks formed. Victor's private investigator unearthed emails, innocent missives from Lucas's college days. A flirtation with a professor that bordered on unethical. Twisted now into moral turpitude. The tabloids sniffed blood. A Chronicle piece headlined, "Montgomery Fortune, Gay Lover's Son Claims Legacy Amid Scandal." Protests erupted outside the courthouse. Queer activists waving signs, "Love is the will," but counter-protesters, egged on by Victor's donors, hurled slurs that echoed Lucas's high school nightmares. One night, after a particularly vicious hearing where Victor testified with crocodile tears about Harlan's hidden demons, Lucas snapped. He stormed into a Castro bar. Neon pulsing, the cafe, in electric blue. Downing shots of Tito's until the world softened at the edges. Alex found him there. Slumped over the sticky bar. Eyes red-rimmed. "You can't drown him out," Alex said, sliding onto the stool, his hand firm on Lucas's thigh. "We face it together." But Lucas pulled away, the liquor fueling a flood of doubt. "Together? Or am I just the sequel to your dad's tragedy? The Montgomery boy? Come to make it right?" The words were knives. Self-inflicted. Born of exhaustion and the fear that love this fierce was too good, too fragile for his cursed bloodline. Alex's face hardened. Hurt flashing like lightning. "Is that what you think? That I'm chasing ghosts?" He stood. Voice low and lethal. "I've got my own scars, Lucas. My own reasons to walk away. But I choose you, messy. Brilliant you, every damn day." He tossed cash for the tab and walked out into the night, leaving Lucas adrift in the din of drag shows and laughter that felt like mockery. The betrayal stung deeper than Victor's lies, his own insecurity, weaponized against the one man who'd bared his soul without reservation. Lucas stumbled home to the Victorian, still half unpacked. Ghosts in every corner, and wept until his throat rawed. The letter on his nightstand a mocking talisman. Dawn found him resolute, driving to No Valley with coffee and an apology scrawled on a napkin. "I see you too. Let's rewrite this fight." Elias answered the door, his expression a map of quiet sorrow. He left at first light. Tahoe. Said he needed the lake to remember why he fights. Lucas nodded, the Mustang's keys heavy in his palm. The drive was penance. Each mile a reckoning with the boy who'd learned to armor his heart against rejection. Mom's? The world's. By the time he crested the pass, snow dusting the peaks like forgotten confetti, resolve had forged into steel. Alex was on the porch, sketchpad in lap, drawing, not photographing, the lake's curve in charcoal strokes. He looked up, eyes wary but softening at the edges. "You came. Always." Lucas knelt, the snow soaking his jeans, and pressed the napkin into Alex's hand. Their kiss was salt and forgiveness, slow burn sweet, bodies aligning as naturally as tides. "I'm scared," Lucas admitted against his lips, "of losing you to this mess." Alex cupped his face. thumbs brushing away meltwater tears. Then don't push. We're in the storm, ride it out. They made love on the porch swing, bundled in wool blankets. The world reduced to breaths and the creak of chains. Urgency tempered by tenderness. Afterward, as stars pricked the velvet sky, Alex traced patterns on Lucas's chest. Victor called Elias today. Dropped a bomb, he's contesting everything. Claims Harlan was coerced into the deeds. Says he's got a witness, your mom. The revelation hit like a rogue wave. Back from Seattle after years of radio silence, her testimony a potential dagger. Lucas's stomach churned. Had she known about Elias? About Dad's hidden heart? The betrayal layered. A palimpsest of familial fractures. Back in the city, the deposition loomed like a guillotine. Mom arrived at the courthouse in a pantsuit too crisp for her artist's hands. Her once vibrant red hair now streaked gray and pulled into a severe chignon. She hugged Lucas awkwardly. Her perfume, Chanel No. But unchanged, stirring ghosts of Thanksgivings past. I did this for you, honey. Victor promised it'd end clean. Under oath. Her words unraveled him. Harlan confided in me once. After too much wine. About Elias. I begged him to end it, for the marriage. For stability over scandal. Her eyes, the same hazel as his, brimmed with regret. But Victor, he twisted it. Said the letter was manipulation. That Elias preyed on weakness. I believed him. Good. Lucas? I'm so sorry. The room spun. Victor's smirk a distant blur. Betrayal's sharpest cut was her complicity. The woman who'd sung him lullabies now complicit in erasure. But as she stepped down, she slipped him a note. I lied for him once. Not again. The real deeds, hidden in my studio. Use them. Crisis crested that afternoon in Victor's office. A showdown sans robes. He lounged behind his desk, smug as a king. Your mother's a smart woman. Knows where her bread's buttered. But Lucas slapped the true deeds down, pristine, dated pre-will. Elias's signature witnessed by a notary Mom had bribed to forget. Game over? Uncle. You forged the shadows. We hold the light. Victor's facade cracked. Rage boiling over. You little shit. Harlan chose me because he knew you'd ruin us. Reckless. Chasing whims like your pervert uncle's lover. The slur hung. Ugly and exposed. And in that moment, Lucas saw the truth. Victor's hatred wasn't for queerness, but for the freedom it represented, the life he'd craved but never dared. Alex lunged, fist cocked, but Lucas held him back. Voice steel. It's done. Judge rules tomorrow. And if you appeal, will air it all, your bribes, your bigotry. The twin who envied love he couldn't have. They left him there, deflating like a punctured tire. The city lights twinkling beyond the windows like witnesses to vindication. The gavel fell the next morning like absolution. The judge's voice steady as she partitioned the estate, cabin to Elias and Lucas jointly. A trust for queer youth initiatives in Harlan's name. The bulk redirected from Victor's grasp with sanctions for undue influence. Cheers erupted from the back. Elias's friends from the old GLBT Historical Society. Signs folded discreetly, but Lucas felt no triumph. Only a hollow echo. Victory tasted of ashes when built on graves. Victor slunk away without a word. His empire cracked, But the real unraveling came later, in the quiet aftermath. Reporters swarmed the steps. Mics thrust like spears. Mr. Montgomery, does this vindicate your father's hidden life? Books? Arm around Alex. Faced them with scripted grace. It's not vindication. It's visibility. But inside, the weight pressed. Dad's secrets had freed him. But at what cost to the living? Elias hosted a wake of sorts at the bungalow. Not for Harlan but for the man they'd all mythologized. Neighbors trickled in with casseroles and casseroles of memories, photos from the quilt march. A dog-eared copy of Angels in America inscribed, Teach? Who flew too low, wine flowed. Laughter mingled with tears. And as night deepened, Elias pulled Lucas aside to the back porch. The city lights a distant constellation. Your dad wanted you to have this, he said, pressing a slim volume into Lucas's hands, a journal. Leather-bound? Pages filled with Harlan's meticulous script. Entries spanned decades. The terror of coming out to Victor in '82. The joy of Lucas's first steps. The agony of Elias's diagnosis. He wrote it for you? After the scare. Never sent it. Afraid it'd break you more than silence. Lucas devoured it in stolen moments over the following days. Each page a bridge across the chasm. Harlan's words were poetry in legalese. Lucas? If you're reading this, know your heart isn't a flaw, it's the compass I lost. Love without apology. The man who deserves it will thank you. By the firelight one evening, journal open on his lap, Lucas broke, sobs racking him as Alex held him close. No words needed, just the steady rise and fall of shared breath. Their love, once a spark in crisis, bloomed into something rooted, resilient. Alex's photos now featured Lucas unposed, laughing over burnt pancakes in the cabin's kitchen, head on his shoulder during a Giants game at Oracle Park. The crack of bats a counterpoint to their murmured plans. They talked futures, expanding Lucas's app with Alex's visuals. A gallery show of queer legacies, but shadows lingered. Victor's silence was a specter. Rumors swirled of his firm's hemorrhaging clients. Boycotts from progressive donors. The fracture came on a crisp October afternoon. Lucas at a co-working space in Dogpatch, debugging code when his phone lit with an unknown number. Victor's voice, rasped and ragged, meet me. The cabin. Alone. I burn it all, the journal, the photos. Everything. No threats. Just the flat certainty of a man cornered. Lashing out. Lucas drove like fury. The Mustang's engine roaring up the grade. Autumn leaves carpeting the road in flame. The cabin loomed serene. Smoke curling from the chimney, Victor inside. Rifling drawers like a thief in his own regret. He turned as Lucas entered. Eyes bloodshot. A tumbler of Dad's bourbon in hand. You think you've won? Took my inheritance. My name. It's not yours to take, Lucas said. Voice even, though his pulse thrummed. Dad chose truth over your version of family. Victor laughed. Bitter as bile. Truth? Harlan chose cowardice. Confess to me once. Sobbing, said Elias made him question everything. I covered for him. Buried the affairs. The clinic visits. For us. And you repay me with this circus? He hurled the glass into the fireplace. Shards exploding like gunfire. I loved him more than you ever could. Straight or not? He was mine. The admission hung. Raw and revelatory, Victor's bigotry a mask for unrequited devotion. The twin bond twisted into possession. Lucas stepped closer, not in anger but empathy, the journal's lessons echoing. Then let him go. Honor the man he was, not the one you needed him to be. Victor's shoulders slumped, the fight leaching out like air from a balloon. Too late. Firm's gone. Wife's filing. You're doing. But as he spoke, a photo slipped from his pocket, the same Polaroid, creased from years of clandestine stares. He was happy, wasn't he? With him. Lucas nodded. Throat tight. Happier than the walls let him be. But yet, he was. In that shared grief. The bridge formed, fragile, but real. Victor left at dusk. The cabin unscathed. A truce unspoken but sealed in the smoke-scented air. Word spread through the family grapevine, Victor's apology email. Terse but sincere. Enclosing a check for the trust, seed money. No strings. He vanished to a condo in Palm Springs. Rumors of therapy and a tentative pride flag sighting. Lucas didn't chase reconciliation, some wounds scarred over. Not out. Winter settled on Tahoe like a benediction, snow blanketing the A-frame in hush. Christmas Eve, they strung lights on the porch, Elias regaling them with Creole carols on an out-of-tune guitar. Alex proposed not with rings but intention, a custom compass, engraved true north, slipped onto Lucas's wrist mid-kiss under mistletoe. "Marry me," Alex whispered, snowflakes melting on his lashes. Not for fortune. For fate. Lucas's yes was a vow, sealed with laughter and the crackle of Yule logs. They wed in spring. A backyard affair in No Valley, Elias officiating in a sequined stole. Guests a tapestry of queer kin, drag aunts, activist uncles, the quilt draped as an arch. Vows exchanged spoke of hidden letters and rewritten stars. Rings simple gold bands etched with lake waves. The app launched to acclaim. Outlines, a digital quilt for mental health. Alex's portraits humanizing user stories. Lucas's TEDx talk on legacy went viral. Fortunes aren't bank accounts. They're the truths we pass on. Unburned. Victor sent a card. Unsigned but postmarked desert hot. Yet the story's heart beat in quieter rhythms, mornings tangled in cabin sheets. Alex's camera capturing Lucas's profile against sunrise, evenings with Elias. Trading journal tales over gumbo, the knowledge that Dad's ghost smiled from the margins. Finally free. One July dawn. Lucas found a hidden nook in the cabin attic, a bundle of Elias's letters. Unanswered but cherished. He read them aloud to Alex on the dock. Voices mingling with loon calls. The lake absorbing their echoes. "We did it," Lucas said. Head on Alex's shoulder. Rewrote the fate. Alex kissed his temple. Fingers interlacing. And keep writing. Years folded like well-worn pages. The cabin evolving from refuge to ritual. Lucas and Alex summered there with Elias, now silver-maned and sage, teaching their adopted niece, Victor's granddaughter, a firecracker named Riley who'd crash their barbecues with demands for Uncle Lucas's ghost stories. Victor himself softened at the edges. Visits tentative but thawing, a fly-fishing trip where he admitted, "Bourbon loose? I was jealous of the light in his eyes." Thought straight meant safer. Fool's bargain. Lucas forgave in layers. Not for absolution but release. The journal now a heirloom. Passed to Riley with caveats. Love's not a straight line. Kiddo. It's a detour worth every mile. The trust burgeoned, funding scholarships for queer youth in Harlan's name. Panels at the GLBT Museum etched with Elias's words, "Forever yours." Their life wove deeper tapestries. Alex's gallery show, Hidden Horizons, packed the de Young, portraits of Lucas through seasons, winter vulnerability by the fire, summer abandon in the lake, each captioned from the letters. Critics hailed it a visual elegy for unspoken loves, but for Lucas, it was mirror and map, reflecting the man he'd become, anchored, unapologetic. Challenges came. As they do, Alex's shoulder surgery after a climbing mishap in Yosemite, Lucas's panic attack mid-pitch to venture capitalists. The echo of old doubts whispering not enough. But they met them entwined. Therapy sessions in a Castro office where counselors marveled at their radical vulnerability. Elias's health waned. Lymphoma a late shadow. But he faced it with the same grit that outlived plagues. Dying in the cabin under a quilt of their making. Last words a grin, "Tell Harlan I said hi. And bring the good scotch." His passing carved fresh grief. But the funeral, a lakeside send-off with jazz trio playing "What a Wonderful World," honored his fire. Lucas scattered ashes from the dock. Alex's hand in his, Riley clutching a daisy chain. He was the storm, Lucas toasted, voice carrying over the water. And we sailed it. In the quiet that followed, their love deepened into legacy. They mentored startups, hosted potlucks for at-risk youth, turned the Victorian into a halfway house for queer runaways, Montgomery House, plaque reading for the boys who see us. Victor's final act was deeding his Palm Springs bungalow to the cause. A silent amends. On their 10th anniversary, Tahoe bloomed riotous, wildflowers rioting along the bluff. The lake a sapphire vow. They renewed vows on the porch, barefoot in linen. Elias's guitar strummed by a proxy bard. Alex's eyes, still stormy blue, held Lucas's with undimmed fire. "You rewrote my fate," he murmured, ring sliding over calloused knuckles. From ghost chaser to home, Lucas pulled him close, the compass on his wrist ticking true. "And you mine, from betrayed son to beloved." Their kiss sealed it, slow and sure. The world fading to the lap of waves and the rustle of pines, secrets unearthed. Fortunes reclaimed not in gold but grace. In the end, Harlan's letter proved more than ink on paper, a seed that grew empires of heart, branching through lives intertwined. Lucas often sat by the fire, journal open, tracing his father's script. "The boy who sees me." He did. And in sync, woven into a fate no twin's shadow could eclipse. As twilight gilds the lake, Alex joins him, hand warm on his nape. "Another chapter?" Lucas smiles, closing the book but not the story. "Always."